Welcome to the Essence of Homeschooling podcast, brought to you by the umbrella school, Start Academy. We empower and equip you to cultivate the authentic homeschool lifestyle where freedom and relationships rule.
Today, Stacy, Kim, and I will be talking about high school. We're going to give you a broad overview of the basic facts regarding high school. The big thing to know is that this is very possible. Your youth can definitely succeed in high school. You can succeed as a high school homeschool parent. The biggest key is it takes purpose and intentionality. So we're going to help break it apart for you so that you can see that you can lay a foundation for education and give you a general idea of the coursework that will be expected. We do want to let you know that the big concern is to always check with the laws of your state to make sure you meet the required coursework of the state where you reside. We always want you to be legal. And then we would say plan for the future. As I think Kim often says, but isn't it a Stephen Covey quote? Stacy says it too all the time. Start with the end in mind. And that end could be, what career, what college, what reason are you setting them up for in their future?
Right. And even if they don't necessarily have an idea, lots of kids don't have an idea right off the top of their heads, even when they graduate. That's okay. The idea is we give them lots of opportunities in lots of different areas. And we have some guidelines that will show you in this podcast that if you work within those guidelines and then give them chances to branch out in their electives, then ideally something will grab their interest and then they'll just take off with that.
If your student does know where they want to go to college or maybe has a list of possible colleges, you can check and see what the college requires for admission and then work backwards. Even if your student does not have a list of possible colleges, you can look at the colleges in your area and see in general, what are they looking for in a well qualified applicant? What kind of classes, what kind of extracurricular activities, what do they want to see on the transcript in order to make your student a well qualified applicant?
And it's not just a list of XYZ courses, they really want to see a well rounded transcript. So, not just academics strictly, but something that shows a little bit more creativity and shows who they are as a person.
Also, depending upon what area of study they want to go in, they may actually be looking at specific classes, like certain levels of math that have been completed, not
Right.
just a consumer math, but did you get into trigonometry? What science courses? Did you take hard sciences or soft sciences? Those are what colleges are going to be looking for. So even as we give you this general guideline for what it is, you're also going to be mindful again of what the colleges look for. The basic guideline is 24 to 28 credits gets you to graduate high school. A credit will entail 120 to 150 hours of work and class time combined, 75% of the textbook completed, or a one semester class at a community college. So those are all the things that count for a credit. Therefore, a half credit is going to be 60 hours of work or 40% of the textbook.
And with these things, it can go both ways. If you have a child that's going into maybe a more rigorous career, then yes, for sure, they're going to want more rigorous math or science or English, whatever it may be. On the other hand, it may not necessarily be as rigorous of a college degree, and they may not need, for example, my younger son did not need foreign language for his degree, so we let that slide. My older son absolutely did need foreign language, so it depends on that. Just a real quick note in here, though, before we go too much further, we do have many people that we work with that unschool, even into the high school years. And I'll tell you, if that is done with intentionality, it can just be absolutely incredible. If you as a parent are working with your child and you're really being intentional about talking to your child about what are they interested in, giving them time to explore different options, try things, maybe fail, maybe succeed. It's definitely a possibility to do this. So the trick is that you want to, besides being intentional, as you're writing out their transcript, you can get a little bit creative with their transcript and we can help you do that. There's a certain way to write classes up when you have an unschooler on the transcript because you want to basically, it's called speaking the love language of the colleges, right? So you want to make sure that you're speaking and writing a transcript in a way that the college is going to turn around and go, I love this kid and this makes sense to me. And wow, this is super creative. It is possible if we're intentional about it, but that's just a side note here because most of what we're going to be talking about in this podcast is really more of the traditional path.
So when we're talking about credits here, please be aware that we're meaning that one credit is a full year of a high school course, and a half credit is a semester's worth of work and time of a high school course. In general, to graduate high school, you would want to aim for 4 credits in English, at least 3 in math, and usually that would include Algebra 1 and geometry. However, again, as we're talking about, keep in mind what your student is thinking they might be interested in. If you have a child going into engineering, they need to be ready to take Calc 1 the first semester of college normally. And so you need to backwards plan from that. For science, you would plan usually 3 credits, at least 2 with a lab. And if you're going to count a science as a lab, generally the time goes from 120 to 150 hours up to about 180 hours to account for the 30 extra hours of lab in order to put it on the transcript. For social studies, you want to aim for 3 credits, include a year of US history and at least a semester of civics, government. Foreign language is a good idea, 1 to 2 credits. But again, as Kim was saying, this is dependent on the colleges. Some will require it. Some will count it as an elective if you bring it in. It really just depends on the college and the major that your child is going to choose. You might want to include 1 credit of fine arts, 1 or more, maybe 1 or a half credit of health and PE. And then, of course, there's electives. There's so many options for electives. I think those of us who went to public school, like I did, are used to the standard electives, and here's your 8 or 10 things to choose from. But in homeschooling, anything can be an elective. You can capitalize on whatever your child is interested in. You can make a class out of it. They could combine volunteering or community service along with the textbook. There's so many different ways to get a credit when it comes to electives. So we're going to list some of the options for electives. And again, these are just possibilities. Feel free to make up your own based on your child's interests.
A lot of these electives, we're going to be really focusing on counting your hours because most of them are not going to necessarily have a textbook, right? So you want to really watch that you count your clock hours on these. So a lot of our families, Bible classes are important to you. So anywhere from 2 to 4 units or credits in Bible. And personal finance is also a real popular one with homeschoolers. A lot of people use the Dave Ramsey program. Just keep in mind that's not technically going to be a math credit. Make sure you use that as an elective because even he says it's a half a credit and there's really not technically enough actual math in there to count as a math credit. But it does make a terrific elective.
When a lot of kids are doing speech and debate, you can count that as an elective. I think anything vocational training, any vocational education, plumbing, electrical, cosmetology, woodworking, construction, those are also great electives.
Yes, and I've had kids work with do either work study, but you can actually count up to a couple of credits. Say you have a job, an actual job somewhere working, you can add those hours. Or some kids have even started businesses with crocheting little things or baking bread or whatever it might be.
Of fine arts, there are a lot of possibilities, such as dance, art, music, photography, musical theater, drama, theater arts, as well as more traditional fine arts like voice lessons, choir, and band. Those are all really good options for fine arts electives.
Yes. And then also think about a lot of our families are big families, lots of kids, or you're in a co op where there's lots of kids and your children can help out with the younger children. And you can actually turn that into an early childhood development elective if you're really, again, intentional about that, training your students how to work best with young children. And then the flip side of that is maybe you have geriatric studies where you've got grandparents living with you or near you and you help take care of them. I've definitely had families where that's part of their lives. And so just lean into what life is putting in front of you.
Definitely lean into the interests of your kids because there's
Mhm.
so many ways you can fill up this elective area. In fact, we have a whole sheet with Statheros Academy, the umbrella school, that I think it's 3 pages of bullet options for other classes that you could count on your transcript. So we'll make sure we link to that in the show notes. Does anyone, Stacy, do you want to take a moment to talk about AP and honors courses?
Welcome to Statheros Academy. We are an umbrella school that fulfills legal reporting requirements for homeschoolers in Colorado. But all of our services like transcripts, diplomas, IDs, and coaching are available no matter where you live. Don't forget to check out our store for homeschool essentials like attendance logs, planners, report cards, and DIY high school transcripts. Whether you need help with paperwork, planning, support, or guidance on your homeschool journey, Statheros Academy is here to support you. Visit theumbrellaschool.com to learn more.
Yes, there are options for homeschoolers, just like institutional school students, to take AP or honors or dual enrollment or even CLEP exams. These are all additional ways of achieving a high school credit and having a weight attached to it and or getting college credit for it. Dual enrollment and honors and AP are weighted on your transcript. So if you do courses like that, for your student will end up with a unweighted GPA and a weighted GPA. And we can talk more about that in the future. And we have some blogs that goes into how to count that and how to actually come up with the GPA on your student's transcript. But just to know that they are weighted more because they are supposed to be more college material. So if you're going to call a class honors and it's going to be more college material than high school material, then you'll want to choose a course that either is honors if you're more traditional, or you justify why this class is honors and why your student should get that extra weight attached to that grade on their transcript. Dual enrollment is when you are taking college classes as a high schooler, so they're college, yet they go on your high school transcript. That is another way of weighting. It's also a way to accumulate credits faster, as one college class is weighted more on your transcript and is a semester of a high school credit. It can get confusing, and that's why we recommend working with somebody as you're preparing your student's transcript, you're preparing to decide what classes your student's going to take in high school. I would recommend against loading up your student with dual enrollment, honors, AP right from ninth grade. Some people try to play the game of accumulate credits as fast as possible, and there are financial benefits to that if you save in college tuition. But if you don't know where your student is going, sometimes you're just accumulating credits and making honors classes for no reason if your student doesn't end up needing them or they go into a different area where you can't even count those. So this is a pretty complicated area, but just know in general there are honors, dual enrollment, AP exams, and AP goes through the college board, just like the SAT, the PSAT, and the CLEP. They all go through the college board. Exams are offered every year in May, and homeschoolers do need to find a school district that is willing to administer the test. Depending on what state you live in, this could be harder to find than others. But if you do want to do that, I would say plan early and make sure you talk to a school district and make sure that they are willing to allow your student to sit for the exam in May. CLEP exams are different. They are exams that you can take to CLEP out, is what they call it, to pass out of a college class. So you get the college credit and you don't have to take that class when your student goes to college. So they, in general, will not count towards your student's college GPA, but they will be a class that they don't have to take. There is one company called Modern States that if you enroll with them and you take their CLEP exam prep for a particular class and you complete it all, you can get a free CLEP waiver. So you can go take the CLEP exam for free.
Mhm.
You, in general, still do have to pay the administrative fee to the CLEP exam site wherever you're testing at. Usually at community colleges, four-year colleges, or testing centers, they all generally will have a small fee, $20 to $40 normally to take the exam there. But Modern States does offer CLEP exam waivers for the actual CLEP fee, which is usually $80 to $100.
Nice.
So these are all different ways of getting college credit. But again, I would caution, don't jump in and get too excited about accumulating all the credits and doing AP exams and CLEP exams without, as we said earlier, looking where your child wants to go in general and what is required.
Right. And knowing your kid too, right? It's like I had one kid that was all about it, and the other kid, nope, not ready, mom. I'm just going to stay doing regular high school work. And you respect that because they know their limits or their what they can do. So I think knowing your
Right.
kids,
And we're really not in a race.
right?
We're trying to give our teenagers what they need to be successful as they grow, but give them time to grow up and discover the reason we go through all those different credits is because by giving them a flavor of all that's offered and all that really is out there in life, you may awake a passion in them for something that you didn't see coming. So we do highly recommend enjoy the broad beauty of a high school education. You're not in a race. They have enough time to be an adult. Don't rush them through it.
100%. That's right.
Definitely.
Statheros has an option to have a transcript with us, and the bare minimum to get a transcript with Statheros is all coursework laid out by your state, 22 credits at least, with maintaining a 2.0 grade point average. Now, remember, this is not enough to cover college. Colleges are looking for between 24 and 28 credits. And so always, again, check with your college. But we also know that not everybody is college bound. Some are headed into careers, some are headed into the military, some just need a gap year, different things like that. So, again, start with the end in mind, but understand that there are options and ways around it because some people are just slower on the uptake for what they want for education, and that's okay. So, if they are one of those not considering college but are considering the military, please know that they will have to take what's called the ASVAB. And I can't tell you what the initials stand for, but it's a military test to test what they would be good at when they enter the military. The military is looking, even amongst homeschool high schoolers, that they graduate high school. So we'll say a little note that we do not recommend the GED. It just makes military and colleges, it makes that entrance harder, and it's just not as respected. as a high school transcript?
If you do have a student who is considering college, four-year college specifically, you will need to consider testing. The most common tests out there for college entrance are the SAT, the ACT, and there's a newer test accepted at a growing number of colleges, but not every college out there. So you need to check into it before you would take it. And that's called the CLT, Classical Learning Test. There's also the PSAT, which is a test that students usually take their junior year of high school. And it's called the PSAT NMSQT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. So your homeschooler can take the PSAT as well. You'll just need to find a testing site that is willing to let your student test there. Some public schools, some private schools, some testing centers will do that. Note that the SAT suite of tests just went digital. Now they're on the computer. So you will need to find a site that is large enough that they are willing to accept homeschoolers, because now they're limited by the amount of computers that they have. So just in practice, this year has been a little bit more difficult to find spaces for homeschoolers. I'm not sure what the future will bring. We'll see how that all works out. But if you want that, you do need to plan ahead. Your student can take it as a sophomore. They could even take it as a freshman, but the junior year is what qualifies a student for the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. And then after that, of course, the CLT, ACT, and SAT can be taken once, more than once. There's multiple testing opportunities, spring and fall and summer. So if your student does not do the way they want on the first test, you can test again. There's also prep studies and books you can get to prepare your student for those tests. I would look at the colleges that your student is interested in to look and see what sort of score that they're looking for. And that generally is also combined with the student's GPA. So just do some research so you know what your student's goal is.
We keep mentioning College Board. And so for those of you that don't necessarily know what that is, you're just starting out, it's collegeboard.org.org. And you can go there and do a lot of reading and research there if you just need more information.
If your student has any aspirations to play NCAA sports, please check the NCAA Homeschool Toolkit. This is a wealth of information for homeschoolers and alternative education students as well. The NCAA is very stringent on this, and you do need to start in 9th grade. If this is at all your student's goal, read through the toolkit. Make sure you fully understand what's required of you as a homeschool parent and administrator, and make sure you do all of those things, especially by the end of 11th grade when you submit your first core course worksheets for 9th, 10th, and 11th. So your student can be labeled a qualifier. It's very hard to go back and fix errors that you've submitted to the NCAA. So make sure that you do your research, join online groups with other homeschoolers who have gone through this process, look into specific curriculum that has been approved by the NCAA in the past. Make sure you know that it's very stringent and what their requirements are.
And they're always looking that you've been legal the entire time of the high school education. So follow the laws of your state.
Yes, you have to prove that you've been homeschooling legally the entire time.
Remember too that if you do have a struggling learner, we can absolutely help you create transcripts for your struggling learners as well. There are ways to create classes, class titles, put notations on your transcript. So please do let us know if you need help with that.
And if your student is not college bound, that's okay. You can explore all their interests and make a high school curriculum reflect what they want to learn and what might benefit them. There are a lot of trades that you can do life skills courses to prepare them for. There are apprenticeship programs. There's a lot of ways of doing high school. No one way is the right way. So make sure that you are listening to your student, seeing what they're interested in, where they might want to go in their future, and then working backwards. And if they change their mind halfway through high school, it's okay. You still have time to pivot. You still have time to make different choices with curriculum or to add a summer school, to add a super senior year. There are lots of various ways that you can make up time or even graduate early if you have a student who wants to graduate early. So I think the bonus here is that homeschool means flexibility. It means individualized learning. It means freedom to do homeschool your way, and that includes high school. We all sometimes think that high school has to be a certain way because that's how we did it and that's most common, but it doesn't have to be that way. So keep the flexibility, keep the freedom, keep the relationship with your students.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. Be sure to check out today's show notes for all applicable links and additional resources. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Your support helps us continue to bring you great content. Until next time, happy homeschooling.